Hello and welcome to Powerful PowerPoint. In this session, we'll be covering the Slide Master. The Slide Master in PowerPoint is basically a set of template sort of slides that you can use as your starting point for your slide designs. So here we've got a new presentation, and if we go to the new slide icon, we're in an office theme and we have 9 different template slides we can start from. Now, this is what Slide Master can show you. And how you access Slide Master is by going to View and then Slide Master. And here you have your master slide, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a few more than 9, but we get a view of all the different slide types we want. So this is our title slide. And if you hover over each one, you get different sort of things pop out with the name of the title and the slide. So here we've got blank layout, for example. These are just things that we have on our slides. Now we could duplicate one of these. So if we right click and hit duplicate, it duplicates it. And if we hover over, we see we get this 1 underscore in front of it. Now we can right click and rename it, and I'm just going to call it comparison version 2, and I'm going to drop the 1 underscore and hit rename. And now for this, I'm going to change what it looks like. So I'm just going to select these two and I'm going to make it smaller. And let's say I want to make this even smaller, but I want to have a nice gap down the middle. Maybe I've not got that positioned correctly. This is where you can use other things. So home, arrange, align right. And then I could add in a line here, for example, to go straight down. And I'm just going to put it to about here, and I'm going to make it, let's say, green for the sake of this one. Now, if we hit close master view and we go to new slide, we get this comparison version 2 appear, which we've just created. So if we click that, we now get the new layout and we get this new green line down the middle already for us. So this is just an example of how we can slightly amend our slide masters. The slide master is also really important. So if we go back into it by going to view and slide master, here we can choose various things that we want on our slides. So we can select different color formats. So if we want a bit more of a green yellow, we could also change background styles to make it like a dark green. So then when you go back to like closing the master view, it becomes the default. So if we go back into it, we can change the fonts, we can make it Tenorite, we could make it Calibri, we could make it Corbel. We can choose whatever font we want, or we can click customize fonts, and here we can choose a different one, for example. So let's say we choose Corianu, and the same for the body font, or actually let's choose Consolus, and I'm going to call this coding, for example, and hit save. You see how that updates. If you hit undo, it takes it back. You can hide background graphics if you want. You can add effects as well to objects. You can add little boxes as well. So here, if I put on this one, let's say I put a little circle and I say this is confidential. Obviously it's a bit too big for that box. So let's make it that size. I'm going to make it bold. Let's say I do it in Arial. If I then adjust the box, just so we can get as much of the text in there as possible. So let's say we have that, for example. It then translates on all to the children. So whatever you do to your main office slide is what happens in the rest of your children. So this is your parent and these are your children. So if I was to move this to say here, we can see that alternates on these slides. If I put it here, for example, we start seeing it come through to the right hand side. So these are just examples of things that can happen and you can do. So you can also have more than one of this. So if you end up pasting in slides from a different deck which has a different theme, it will start adding those themes into your slide master underneath, which is where you can start getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like you do with normal slides. If you no longer need a specific, say, slide, or let's say that your deck is too big and you don't really need the image templates, you can end up coming into the slide master, deleting them, resaving the presentation, and it should reduce the size of the presentation as well. So that's just another thing to note. You can rearrange these in your slide master. It ultimately makes no overall difference, primarily because it's not going to impact your existing presentation. So you see we added that confidential in and now it's visible everywhere. As you can also see, we have some fonts here in Aptos. What we could also do is, if I go to the master title slide and I hit find and replace fonts, here I can end up choosing a font that exists, so Aptos, and let's say I want to replace it with Arial. So here I can come through and click on Arial and hit replace. And if I do the same with Aptos display, same thing happens too. Now if we end up going back and closing the slide master, we can end up seeing that all the fonts in the presentation have changed. I must have accidentally activated Cameo. But this is some of the things that you can do with your slide master. If you want to create a placeholder, for example, you can do that. So let's choose this blank slide. We're going to duplicate the layout. We're going to rename it and we're going to call it layout 5, for example. We're going to insert a placeholder. Let's say we want to insert some content. So we're going to have something here. We're going to copy that and just drag that down. So we end up having this. And I might just bring this a bit more centered so it's got division on the top. You can also add a picture fill, for example. So let's say I want that here along the bottom. I could get that in, for example, so you could get an image to fill there. If you want, let's say, some just text, you can add that too. And you get the same as that. And if you want, you can also add a title. And you can remove the footers as well. I'm going to remove the footers, but I want to keep the title. And let's say I want it to be here. And I might just move or make this a little bit smaller, just so then we can get it all fitting on the slide. Now if we close that view and we go to new slide and we look for layout 5, we've got that here now to our heart's content. We can then play around with this and you can alter it. So I'm just going to put some text here, just so it fills the content of the slide. And if we end up going back into the slide master and editing that, here we may end up realizing actually we want this to be a bit smaller. It's a little too cramped and too close to the left hand side, so we'll move it to the right. And then let's say we think that this actually needs some more space. or there needs to be another one. For example, we can take this up here, we can end up choosing another one of these placeholders to be made, and there you go, we've got that here, for example, and it looks a little bit better. But as soon as you close that master view, you can then see that the existing layouts which use that, which are in your deck, update to that new view. Or if it doesn't, you can then right click, go to layout, select a different layout, and then go back to which it should then re-update any content you have in your deck. And a couple more things as well before we wrap up is you can end up making these slides also have specific bullet points or bullet styles, and on top of that you can also create more slide masters. So if we go to view and we go back to the slide master, we're on this layer at the moment, and let's say we change this one and we want it to be a number, we can do that. If we want this one to be, let's say, some ticks, we can do that. So if we come out of the slide master, we can see it's then updated on the view of the actual slide. Now, if we go back in slide master one more time, you can see we only have essentially what is known as one master. If you hit insert slide master, this is where you can then go ahead and create your second, your third for your branding, for your branded decks that you will use either internally, externally. It's really good on that. And you can also do the same edits we were doing earlier. So let's say we want to take this confidential tag and we want to put that here. We can do that as well. We can change it, and now we have it all in this new color scheme. And if we close that and we go to new slide, we get the theme we were working with earlier plus this custom design theme which we just created. And here we can select a new slide, and we've got everything just as it was in the slide master. Stay tuned for more powerful PowerPoint.